Happening, Dewey.
What up?
Let's get it rolling. Welcome into Inside Carolina Postgame Podcast. Shout out to the 180 plus people in here already on Inside Carolina's YouTube channel. That's Dewey Burke. I'm Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Carolina gets a much needed and necessary win, 71-63 over Virginia. Dewey, I usually go to you for overall thoughts, but I'm going to say this first. Whatever Pete Nance did pregame, whatever he ate, whatever he did to get his back feeling well, they need to replicate it Monday night and next Saturday night. He was fantastic against Virginia.
He was, and he really was the catalyst. And, I thought we were really good in the first half. Offensively, really solid and guarded them. Virginia has a way of making you play ugly, and they did that in the second half, no question. That was a Virginia-type second half. And they tightened the screws a little bit defensively, but I thought Pete was just so active and assertive, and obviously it helps when the ball goes in the basket. But I thought him and RJ had a lot of really good chemistry out there in terms of the two-man game, and obviously making some outside shots. Not just him, but everybody was huge to see. And I had a good feeling coming into this game. I really did. Obviously, Virginia's been struggling, but you gotta. What is it? If you regress to the mean, you say regress to the mean when you're shooting it great and then you come back down. What is it when you are shooting the ball abysmally and then you come up, aggress? I guess you aggress to the mean. Somebody can put that in the comments. But I just thought we'd make shots. I felt better about our prospects at home. I thought the crowd would be there, and still plenty of things you would nitpick at the end of the game. But, man, it was nice to see the ball go in the basket for a number of guys.
Yeah, you got 10 for 22 on threes. What I thought was good there is they did not take a bunch of unnecessary threes. Caleb 1 for 8. He didn't have the best of night, but they did not have a situation, and this is what I was talking about, which shout out to Dodd, who watched the game with me here at the house, is they weren't jacking threes when they didn't need to jack threes. And we've seen bad games turn into 5 for 30 type games. We saw it last time. So I thought they were more disciplined, Dewey. Your thoughts there against Virginia, because like you said, Virginia wants you to just shoot 3 after 3 after 3 after 3, and Carolina just didn't fall for it, I didn't feel like.
No, I think that's right. And early in the game, very early, first possessions, I thought we were really east-west and just kind of dribble handoff, and not getting anywhere with anything. And our ball screens, they were hard hedging, and we weren't getting any type of advantage. And then as the half progressed, I thought we got downhill a lot better and got to the painted area. And that's what breaks down Virginia is they build that fortress and want you to take contested threes at the end of the shot clock. And we did a much better job as the half progressed. And then you saw it at the start of the second half. They made it difficult for us to do anything. They're so physical defensively, and they make you play their style. It's funny. A friend of mine who's not a Carolina guy texted me, and he said, both these teams are brutal to watch. And I responded, I said, what you are seeing is the way Virginia makes you play. Now, have we been ugly to watch at times? No question. But my point to him was, this is how Virginia plays. And quite frankly, I don't know how they get any recruits, because they walk the ball up and they just play an ugly style. So, the key against them is making shots, because they're going to force you to score from the outside. We did get a little bit on the interior at times, but, you make 10 threes, it goes a long way.
Yeah, shout out to now the close to 300 folks in the Inside Carolina post game. Of course, I mentioned Johnny T-Shirt, and we already gave Pete Nance his props, and we will give him his props the rest of the show for sure. Somebody in the chat said Baycott with only 6 field goal attempts. That's accurate, but he was in foul trouble most of the night. And, when you've got Nance playing assertive, it sort of minimizes Baycott not being as involved. Let's talk about the defensive side, Dewey, because I felt like going into this game that this is a game that they needed to show some effort on defense, or Virginia would just lull you to sleep and get buckets. Virginia's got some good players. They've struggled, and they struggle on offense, but I thought Carolina's defensive effort, for the most part, was as good as it's been, especially some individual efforts that we just haven't seen the last few weeks.
Yeah, agree. And one thing we haven't seen all year is a lot of rim protection. And then tonight we had 8 blocks. So Pete protected the goal quite well tonight. Leaky had a block or two, obviously. Look, anytime a team shoots under 40%, you did your job. And back when I played, when we would walk out of the locker room, right there on the wall in front of you was every game we played, and there would be a little star next to the games where we held teams under 40% field goal percentage. So that was a key metric for Coach Williams. And it's, you don't do it a lot, and they did it tonight, which is key. Virginia is not that talented, and so we should be able to guard them. They don't have somebody that you're, to me, worried about getting 30, 35. They do it as a unit and try to grind you down with lots of screens and lots of movement and make you defend for 25, 30 seconds. And for the most part, we had good discipline. I mean, look, the start of the game, I think they scored on like their first 4 or 5 possessions. Virginia did. So if or something like that, or 5 for their first 7, you take that out of their field goal percentage, and they actually shot the ball pretty poorly. So I thought we were attentive and active. There's always things you can do better. I thought we gave up too many offensive rebounds and kind of scramble plays. But that's going to happen against Virginia. Those kids play really hard because they make up for their lack of just natural scoring ability, in my view. But yeah, look, I think for the most part, the effort was there defensively, and you hate to say it, but I think everything goes better when you make shots. And Puff made a couple, RJ made a couple, including some tough ones. Pete made some. So it was nice to see guys shoot the ball at least closer to what they're capable.
Let me give you a stat and tell me if you've heard this before. Virginia had 2 fast break points. Carolina had none. That is Virginia basketball in a nutshell right there. They have made some mighty good North Carolina teams look mighty bad on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And for this team to be able to get it done, shot 47%. Let's talk a little bit about and shout out to you for doing this. I hear the young ladies having a high time at your house. It's awesome, man.
They're screaming.
I must admit I'm a little jealous. A little bit of baby fever as I get older, or maybe some grandchild fever at some point. But looking at this team in the half-court set, what did you see that, aside from actually making shots, did you see anything differently? Ball movement, rotations, offensive setups, whatever. Did you see anything different tonight than we've seen?
Well, I think we obviously got into a big discussion last podcast after Notre Dame about Brady, and then my article that we put up, I reemphasized the point that I understand the importance that Brady had with this team, and especially in the tournament. And everybody said, "Well, what about the Baylor game?" It's like, come on, guys, that was one game. I'm not discounting Brady at all. But you saw tonight what floor spacing and making shots can do for our offense. When stretch 4 is impactful, you get a lot more flow. And even though Armando didn't have a great game and didn't get a lot of touches, still when the ball went in there, they were immediately doubling, right, on almost every possession, which sets them off in rotations, and they should be behind. And when the ball starts to move, we got a lot of good open looks, and we made them. And so I wish I could tell you that I saw something dramatically different. I saw the ball go in the basket. I saw Pete make a couple. Forget about the one at the end of the half. His other 2. I think he had 2 other threes. Puff's 2 threes. RJ making a couple off the bounce. Guys made shots. I mean, it's just again, whatever we're calling it, aggress to the mean. Whatever they did, they came back closer to what they should be capable of. Because if you go back and watch the first half of the Notre Dame game, when we shot the worst percentage in 43 years, they had a ton of open looks, a ton of them, and they just flat didn't make them.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said, "I wish Dewey was on this team." I think he would hit some shots.
I might be able to stand over there and fire away. You might be right.
You can sit in that corner. You can hit that corner 3 all day long. Yeah. Carolina wins 71-63. Who knows about the net and all that kind of stuff, and Virginia is sort of tanking out on that. But Carolina goes to Florida State on Monday, a quick turnaround. Is it easier for a coach and for a team to stay hot with the quick turnarounds? Like we've talked in the past about the NCAA tournament setups. Like, is it easier for that game to be a day later rather than wait for another week or whatever. Do you think that plays well for this North Carolina team to go ahead and get to Florida State?
That's a good question. I mean, you like it as a player because tomorrow's practice is like a nothing, right? So it's pretty limited. I mean, we would even sometimes not even call it practice, just call it a run and shoot, so you'd just kind of get your legs loose and get up a ton of shots, a ton of free throws, and watch film, so those are kind of nice days as a player. And then boom, you're right on the road and ready to play again. So they'll appreciate it. I mean, it's the end of the season, so you can make the argument, hey, they need to rest their legs, they're tired, whatever. We're desperate. And so tomorrow ought to be a relaxing day for the guys, watch some film and make some shots and then be ready to go. And obviously Florida State knocked off the top team in the conference today. So I know they've struggled, but they still have talent and size usually and that kind of thing. So look, I think it's good. I'm good with it. And then you can get a little break and get ready for senior night.
Wow, it is wide open at Dewey's house as it was wide open in the Smith Center.
Yeah.
So Dewey, any negatives that we saw here? We always nitpick when they lose. What did you see in this game that maybe was like, oh, that's the same as it's been? I mean, they were a little sloppy in the second half, ugly, 29 points, but overall, just a general take on how this team has come together a little bit against Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, Hubert talked about taking the weighted vest off and playing a little lighter and freer, and I thought you saw that. I mean, when you see RJ hit shots down the end of the shot clock where he makes a couple moves, a little in and out and crossover and hits a three, that to me is a guy playing loose. When you see Pete Nance at the end of the half, the play broke down, whatever they called out of that timeout, and he just stepped back and shot it. That to me is a kid playing a little more free, and so that's encouraging. Because we've just struggled so mightily with shooting and effort at various times. If you had a nitpick, 9 offensive rebounds, you're not thrilled about that because those are effort plays. And, certainly didn't love some of the possessions down those last 3 minutes when one thing that I didn't love, and again, this gets into coaching style, meaning I don't know how Hubert coaches it, but I would say even the last 5 minutes, we got a number of stops and had opportunities to run, I thought. And they pulled the ball out and walked it up and called a half-court set. And I guess that's just how we play. But if, Coach Williams would have been breathing down our neck to run, even in those situations. I mean, we really didn't pull the ball out until like under 2 minutes that I can recall. And so that 5 to 3 minute mark, we got a bunch of stops. I would have liked to see us push the ball, run. Puff got a couple rebounds, just kind of held it, waited for RJ. It's like, go. But we just don't push the ball that much. So offensive rebounds, I thought we could have played with a little more pace. But if that's the number 6 team in the country, you're not going to complain too much.
Yeah, last question, and I asked for questions earlier, but obviously my man Dewey has things to take care of at the house. Let me ask you one question from the chat. Ask Dewey to explain why the high ball screen using Mondo never delivers. Is it because the guards – well, too many questions. Y'all are moving it around. Is it because the guards – I'll put it up here. Is it because the guards aren't point guards? What is it? Why does that never seem to work? I'll freely admit I don't like Baycott catching the ball, and I want you to talk about what we exchanged text about during the game when he got that charge call.
Yeah, so I don't know how effective Armando is really going to be catching the ball at 15 feet. I don't know that that's a comfortable position for him. I mean, pick and rolls where we maybe get a switch where he can then post up a perimeter player makes sense to me, but I think he still seems uncomfortable on that catch. And I'll tell you one thing that drives me crazy, and it's not just Armando. It's we don't screen well enough. We kind of mosey up there and then depart before the actual screen contact takes place. And obviously, the best part about a pick and roll getting started is the actual impact with the person guarding the ball. And I think we whiff on that too much, considering how many ball screens that we call and run in our sets. But then to your point, when Armando does catch the ball kind of on his way to the rim late in the first half there when I texted you, just the block charge call is such a problem. They do such a bad job of officiating it. And I thought that kid was moving. and he had a foot in the restricted area, and Armando was making a basketball play. It's not like he had his shoulder way down and just pummeled the guy. But as a defender, especially if you're a little bit smaller, if there's a big guy coming towards me, I just fall down. And they're probably going to give me a charge. And it just makes me crazy. And so for a guy that was in foul trouble, yeah, he's going to be apprehensive catching that ball off the roll at 15 feet and worry about picking up another charge. So, yeah, look, when they ran some action last year where they would pick and pop Brady and roll Mondo, defenses had big problems because they had to make a choice. We haven't shot the ball well enough for them to worry about that pick pop for Nance or really do anything but focus on Armando. And so, do I think he can set better screens? I do. Do I think he's uncomfortable catching the ball 15 feet? I do. And so, for as much as we run it, to me, when we space the floor and guys can make shots, that should open up rolling lanes for Armando. But the way Virginia plays and how poorly we've shot the ball, teams just pack it in. So Armando catches that ball, there's three guys. And that's difficult to ask your 4 or 5 to make a solid play every time catching that ball in space.
Yeah, and to your point, Dan Bonner explained the charge and said the primary ball defender can be in the circle. It's the secondary guy that can't be in the circle for the charge call, which I'm like, what's the point of having the circle? And so I don't understand it. I think they ought to get rid of the charge, quite frankly. And I will give props to a team like NC State, like I said, when they played, is they will man up and play defense instead of flopping on the ground. And so I think Florida State will probably play it more straight up. But you're right. As soon as he caught that ball and got called for that charge, I was like almost looking at my phone saying, here it comes, and you delivered the text. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Makes me crazy.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And Baycott gets more fouls away from the basket or that type of foul than anybody I can ever remember.
And Carolina, what was interesting? Sorry, Tommy. What was interesting was what Corey Alexander was saying. He was saying Armando made contact and the whistle blew and he looked guilty. Well, yeah, because all that ever happens is he gets called for charges on every bang bang play like that. He gets called for a charge. So yeah, maybe if he had just played through it and laid the ball in, maybe they don't call that. But I don't know. I'm not a buyer of that argument. I just think the flopping for charges is a problem in the college game.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of college basketball, and it seems like the ACC calls the charge more than anybody. Maybe that's just because I watch it mostly. Pittsburgh has got a share of the regular season ACC championship. Hard to believe for them after Virginia's loss. And I don't know, Dewey, if you saw the Iowa-Michigan State game. If you haven't, go back and watch those highlights.
I didn't watch it. I saw what happened, and I also saw the Florida State-Miami game as well, which was wild. So, yeah, look, we got our work cut out for us on Monday. We cannot look past that game because as good as this looks for our resume, that will look equally or worse, equally as bad or worse if we stumble. So, got to have both these, and then we get to 20 wins. And, it's funny. I had a lot of conversations this week randomly. People are asking me, what's wrong with Carolina? And I said, look, they got to win these 3. And I think they're in because you go behind closed doors at the NCAA, and they want Carolina in the tournament. They do. So just please give them a reason. Please give them something. So you couldn't go in there 0-11 in quad 1 and have any prayer. So now we got 1. We need 1 more, but can't stumble against Florida State.
Yep, Florida State, 7 o'clock on a Monday, quick turnaround, but maybe a good thing for this team. And then Duke in the Smith Center next Saturday. Got to have them. You said it a while back. What's next? And you said got to have them all, and Carolina's at that stage. Carolina gets the win against Virginia, 71-63. Dewey, anything left other than praise for Pete Nance? Cannot say it more often. We've banged on him a lot. So anything beyond that for this one before we get out of here?
No, look, Pete was great, and hopefully he takes a lot of confidence from this because he certainly had some games of late where he couldn't have played worse, unfortunately. And so, happy for him as a kid who looked like there was a weight off his shoulders when he made a couple shots and showed some emotion. But good to see Puff make a couple shots as well. We still get very little from our bench, but had to have it. And I thought they came out attentive and moved the ball well and did their best to fight off the Virginia style, which is slow and ugly and just physical. We did the best we could and came out with a win. So we'll take it.
Indeed, Carolina gets the win they had to have. Florida State, like I said, this is Inside Carolina's post-game podcast, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. We will be around on Monday. We'll see how we do it. Thanks to everybody. Shout out to the 500 folks that make us a part of your evening.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys.
That is unbelievable. That. Yeah, be on the lookout for Dewey's 5 takeaways in the morning on InsideCarolina.com. We'll be back coast to coast, guys. We'll be with you later in the weekend. Fun times, Dewey. Thanks.
Thanks, T.